What is your fake it till you make it story? My piece of shit druggy brother-in-law used to lie and said he had heavy equipment operator experience. He'd get the job and get fired in a day or two, but pick up something small. Did that 15 or 20 times and kept moving around until he learned enough to not get fired. I taught a class on a specialty software program. I was learning the software myself and I was literally one class ahead of the people I was teaching. I had this file thing in elementary school where you have to put all your worksheets in a folder and my teacher will check it at the end of the year. Well, I did not do it and convinced her that I handed in, but she lost it. She said she will get back to me and I'm still waiting. I was desperate for a job several years back, so I wrote up this resume that was utter horseshit on a whim. Granted, some of it was legit, but a good 80% was me bullshitting. Amazingly enough, I got a call for an interview, and by some miracle they ended up hiring me, and I worked for the place for 7 years before something I was actually qualified for opened up at another workplace. That bullshit resume saved me from ruin though, so I always will look back in that crazy situation fondly. My entire professional career, I played with computers growing up insofar as I knew how to turn one on, download a game, and play them very well. I knew next to nothing about building them or troubleshooting them, usually depending on my friends to help when my second-hand PC threw a shit fit. Cut to me, fresh out of college with a waste of paper degree looking for a job. I get hired by an IT contractor cause I knew a gal that knew a guy, with the understanding I needed to know the basics. I didn't know shit. I made it up as I went along, googling the living shit out everything. That was 10 years ago. I'm now a systems administrator. Last weekend I was at a wedding dance and they played the jit up. No one knew the dance, including myself, but liquid encouragement kicked in, and I lead the entire wedding dance, 50 plus people, in a dance that I completely made up on the spot. Everyone was so impressed after that I knew all of the moves, that I didn't tell anyone any different. Edit. Thanks for the silver. My first. Cheers. My business started by me just saying yes, I can do that. I can supply that for you. I had no idea that they would be willing to hear me out 5 years later, and I'm now supplying desks and office equipment to over 120 offices in London. You really can go far if you just say yes. I started at a big ol' multinational in retail as a college dropout. I started at the lowest rung of customer service in a store. Now retail has lots and lots of staff turnover, and a multinational has a shitin of rules, or you'd expect them to have. Also, I'm not the dumbest around. Never mind the college dropout, that's another story. And well, to be fair, not everyone in retail is super smart. So there was a consistent lack of management, or they didn't care, and all the rules and regulations had gaps in them. So people start asking questions. How do I solve this? What should I do next? Etc. Nobody had an answer to these questions, so I started answering them using common sense or what I'd think should work. Just filling the gaps, which probably made me look a lot smarter than I am. Just faking that I knew what I was doing. So I started climbing the ladders and I'm now the senior finance and operations director for a store with a gross turnover of over 160 million euro. However, cracks are starting to show. The company got a lot more serious, and I'm surrounded by smart people with high degrees, where I can't bluff my way through problems and meetings as easily. So, I'm thinking of taking a step back and relaxing a bit more on lower position. I was a lot happier then, and had way less stress and way less hours. TLDR, faking works until it doesn't. I'm an artist who works in the film industry. Some years ago my wife got pregnant, purposefully, and I had to try to find a way to make more reliable income while she was on mat leave and for the foreseeable future, as we knew we weren't only having one. I also wanted to stay in film. I got work as a grip, grunt work lugging things around set and building / setting up large bits of lighting gear. No clue what I was doing. I started off on big shows like The Flash and Arrow. A friend got me work on a small set, and only 13 days into working as a grip, which I didn't tell them, they made me the key grip. Key is film talk for manager. I was in charge of a whole department, which is one half of the lighting team. Faked it until I made it. Fast forward over 5 years. I have over 30 credits to my name as a key grip. I own an entire 5-ton truck's worth of gear that I rent out, which makes as much money per show as my wage did. My wife is back at work after having 2 kids, and I'm a stay-at-home dad with consistent passive income and the time to continue to write and audition whenever I need. I dropped out of high school in 10th grade. I hated school with a passion. I did get a JED. I started working retail and found I really liked managing projects and eventually people. I ended up leaving retail for a call center job in a fairly large company. Within 4 years I was running a marketing division. I had no fucking clue what marketing was or anything. I'm just good at getting people to trust me, and I'm very creative. I got bored there and somehow got myself into another marketing role at an even bigger company. 5 years later I'm the CMO. I still really don't know shit about traditional school taught marketing. I literally faked it till I made it. I'm very good at what I do. Social anxiety. I was always the quiet guy up until a few years ago. I decided I was tired of not having friends and I started faking confidence and talking to everyone. In the beginning I was dying inside and felt like I was walking on glass. Now I don't know when to shut up and can talk to just about anyone. During college, I worked part-time as a deli clerk in a grocery store. I had zero experience with deli items, didn't know head cheese from salami or provolone from Munster. So, I'd explain to customers that I was new and ask them to point to items in the case that they wanted and what the sign indicated for the price per pound. They always seemed happy to help out, especially when I gave them free samples from the slicing machine. I'd always been interested in programming. As a kid I tried to teach myself C and Java with mild success. Fast forward to the time I'm 24. I'm working as a piercing apprentice at a tattoo shop making $20 a day a few days per week. I meet a girl, fall for said girl ends up pregnant. A few hours after the pregnancy test I'm applying for jobs on Craigslist and I find a PHP job a few minutes up the road. I've worked with PHP for maybe a few hours in my entire lifetime, but it was a tiny company and the interview wasn't technical. I lied through my teeth the entire time and get hired. After being hired I tried to start learning PHP on the job. The owner of the company created his own PHP framework which was god awful, so I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. I got fired 2 weeks later. In those 2 weeks on the job I made an honest effort to learn more about web design and development, so I offered my design services to a local web design company for free so that I could learn. Walking home after being fired I called up the web design company and they ended up hiring me. I would learn on the job for a year or so and then take my skills to get more money somewhere else. 10 years later I'm the lead software engineer on a big project making just over 6 figures. If a pregnancy test hadn't scared me to death that day I would still be working dead-end jobs to scrape up enough money for weed and booze. Sleeping. I fake trying to do it till I'm surprised by the real thing. A while ago I decided to stop complaining about environmental destruction, climate change, etc. and act. So I started planting trees. Keep in mind I had no training in this. I never even gardened before. I considered myself a brown thumb. I researched how to do it, and it seemed pretty easy, but everything died. I'd plant a tree exactly how they said, but it wouldn't survive. I had to baby them so much just to get them through their first year, and maybe half would make it. But I just kept planting and faking I knew what I was doing. Then I came across stuff by Dr. Elaine Ingham on soil science and it kind of changed everything for me. It made a whole lot of sense. Ecosystems transition from deadland to weedpit to grassland to brushland to forest. As they do, the soil microbiology changes from dead soil to bacterial dominated soil to fungal dominated soil. So the correct way to plant trees is actually to transition the soil to forest soil as fast as possible. Nature takes thousands of years of weeds dying, and then grasses dying, and soil life building and building, to a small woody shrub, which then eventually dies, and now it changes. Now everything changes. Woody material on the ground means fungus can move in. It's game over at this point, and you will transition to a forest now. So the correct way to plant a tree is to speed yourself to this point by dropping wood chips on the ground and letting the soil chemistry change. After a few months, or even better, a year, now plant your trees into the environment they want to live in. Well, that changed everything, and now I go around planting mini starting forests everywhere on my land, in wild places, abandoned lots, etc. I've seen little pockets of life I've planted turn from a few trees to a small thicket. At this point, it's unstoppable and the land heals. It's an incredibly rewarding hobby, but one you must take very seriously. Anytime you plant something, you set in motion wheels of change, so you must know what you are planting. For this reason I stick to local native trees, shrubs, herbs, flowers, things that exist all around me. That's good for many reasons, the least of which isn't free genetic material, seeds, to make this hobby 100% free. What is really rewarding though is driving to work and seeing a bird perched on an apple tree that I planted in a cluster of life with bees buzzing around the apple, haskap and lovage and borage and strawberries and asparagus, clover, fruit tree guild. Looking and seeing apple saplings bursting up through the sweet sicely. The ecosystem has its foothold in now and will replicate itself, sequestering carbon and healing the soil long after I'm gone. So I started as someone who considered themselves a brown thumb, and with a little action and knowledge seeking, I now have pockets of life all around my community that are expanding and growing, that I was the catalyst for creating. That's a legacy right there, and that's how we reverse climate change and give our children a world worth living in. Please like and subscribe, you scrubs. Don't tell your mum on me. Here are some more videos.